Hey, what is up? Mortals, welcome to part 4 season 1 of What If Deku Was Trained by Aizawa. I just wanted to greet you guys by just saying, sit back and relax, you're in for a treat. So, we begin. Shortly after President Mike announced the conclusion of the entrance exam, the giant zero-pointer slowed down to a halt, and Izuku had just barely moved the brunette to safety before the robot could reach her. Are you alright? Izuku asked the brunette, who was blushing furiously. The sight of her already pink-tinted cheeks having gone completely red confused the boy. I'm alright, but could you please put me down? The girl stuttered, and Izuku quickly realized what he had done. Sorry. Izuku apologized, gently lowering her down to the ground before letting his newfound embarrassment get to him. A few moments later, the youthful heroine, otherwise known as Recovery Girl, arrived at the scene. Despite her title, she was a small lady on the older side of the spectrum. The youthful heroine made her way through the streets of the test city, healing any and every injured student until she finally got to Izuku and the brunette. Would you stay still, darling? Recovery Girl asked the brunette, who remained still. Oh my god, it is Recovery Girl. Izuku thought to himself as the hero's lips somehow extended down to the brunette's leg and kissed it. Moments later, the girl was moving her foot in circular motion with a smile on her face. Thank you, ma'am. The girl spoke in an enthusiastic tone while the old lady just smiled, examining Izuku for any injuries. Later that afternoon, Izuku arrived at home and informed his mother of the events of the entrance exam before calling Aizawa, who failed to pick up the phone. That's odd. Izuku spoke softly under his breath while staring at his phone. The boy knew that the teachers of UA would be busy for a long time with marking all of the written exams, so he didn't find it too surprising. Maybe he'll call me later, Izuku thought to himself before continuing with his usual afternoon schedule. Izuku went on to spend the next week finishing his school year at Aldera Junior High, and the weeks after that he continued his training. Doubts about his score in the entrance exam tugging at his thoughts more and more with every passing day. The boy knew he had done well in both the written and the practical, but he had good reasons for doubting his acceptance into UA, and that was due to the fact that he was quirkless. It was because of this glaring fact that the Greenette had also attended an entrance exam for a law school, as his childhood bully had recommended. Once the short break in between school years was nearing its close, a letter with the UA stamp on it arrived at the Midoriya household. Inko, who had lost a considerable amount of weight over the last year, was the first one out of the two Midoriyas to see the letter and came running into Izuku's room. Izuku, struggling to get words out of her mouth. Inko held the envelope out in front of her, and Izuku instantly understood why she was stuttering. Is that? Izuku fumbled on his words, and Inko nodded. Are you going to open it? Inko asked, and Izuku hesitated, but he reached out to her and took the letter, his heart racing faster than a cheetah could run. Why, yeah, Izuku responded, gulping while looking down at the letter that was now in his hand. He was extremely hesitant to open it in front of his mother, and she quickly picked up on it. I'll give you some time to open it, sweetie. Inko forced a smile while rubbing her hands together slowly. Thanks, Mom. Izuku spoke softly while his mother turned around and exited the room, closing the door behind her. About an hour later, Izuku was sitting by his desk with the envelope still not opened in front of him. Izuku had wanted to take a moment to calm himself, and it had taken longer than expected. His hands were trembling, and the confidence he had built up over the past 2 years was facing a huge wall that needed time to be climbed. Taking a deep breath, Izuku closed his eyes. It's now or never, Izuku thought to himself before reaching down and grabbing the envelope, ripping it in half with one swift movement. Flinching, Izuku was surprised when a circular device fell out from inside the envelope and landed on his desk with a thud. Staring down at it, Izuku reached down to it and pushed the top of it lightly, and soon after a blue screen popped up in front of him. Midoriya. Izuku's eyes lit up as his idol appeared on the screen, looking more tired than usual. Unlike other teachers at UA, I won't waste your time with giving you all the details on how a student passed or failed. Instead, I just have a few words for you. Aizawa was standing behind a desk in a room that looked very similar to something that would appear on the news. To be blunt, I am proud of you, kid. You did well in the entrance exam. The words caused Izuku's heart to beat even faster and his blood to rush through his veins at an accelerated pace. Despite being quirkless, you Izuku Midoriya, through heroic actions and making good use of what was provided to you, scored a grand total of 100 points in the practical exam, with 30 villain points and 70 rescue points. A window popped up showing the top 10 examinees for the practical exam, with Izuku at the top of the list. Congratulations, Midoriya. You have made it into UA. Aizawa made a smile wider than Izuku had ever seen him pull off in the 2 years of them knowing each other. But it was a smile the boy was almost glad he had never seen before. Regardless, with those last few words, a river of tears left Izuku's eyes and the video ended. Shortly after, Izuku informed his mother of his success in the entrance exam, which ended up leaving their apartment soaked from a flash flood of tears. Intermission. Honey. This video was sponsored by Honey. Honey is a free browser add-on available on Google, Opera, Firefox, Safari. If it's a browser, it has Honey. Honey automatically saves you money when you check out on sites like Amazon, Papa John's, and Kohl's. Wherever you shop, it's a good chance that Honey can save you money. All you have to do when you're checking out at these big sites is click that little orange button, and it will scan the entire internet and find discount codes for you. It takes 2 clicks to install Honey. Now anytime you check out, Honey will scan the whole internet and find coupon codes for you. If there is a coupon code, they will find it, and if there's not a coupon code, you can rest assured that you are getting the best price possible. If you install Honey right now, you can save so much money on your online shopping doing nothing. There's no reason not to install Honey. It takes 2 clicks, 10 million people use it, 100,000 5-star reviews. Unless you hate money, you should install Honey. Use the link in the description to start saving money now. Continuation. Days later, Izuku arrived at the entrance of UA, this time wearing the signature UA uniform with a smile on his yet-to-be-tired face. Entering the building, Izuku found himself surprised that the halls and classrooms were relatively empty. Due to this small detail, Izuku was unable to find Class 1A, the class he hoped to be spending the rest of his academic year learning in. After a small bit of roaming around the halls of UA, Izuku eventually found his classroom, which had a huge massive door which was big enough to dwarf All Might. They really do accommodate all sorts of students. Izuku stared at the giant door for a few moments before opening it and entering the classroom, which was also empty. What? Izuku was dumbfounded to find his classroom empty as well, quickly pulling out his phone to check the time. Oh, Izuku face-palmed. He had arrived at UA an hour early and was now left on his own in the building. And so he decided to do the one thing he and his teacher loved to do during the day. Placing his school bag on a table on the far left side of the class, Izuku opened and pulled out a yellow sleeping bag very similar to his teacher's. I've been waiting to use this. Unrolling the bag, Izuku opened it up and placed it on the floor. Shortly after, Izuku climbed in and zipped up the bag, falling asleep not even a moment later. Oh dude. Izuku woke up to the sound of a voice that sounded familiar, followed by a finger poking his face. Ooh, hello. The voice continued and Izuku furrowed his eyebrows. Just a little longer, Sensei Aizawa. Izuku rolled to his side while sighing. Sensei who? The voice and the poking at his face continued for a little while longer until Izuku finally opened his eyes. Alright, I'll get up. Izuku raised his voice slightly, but not in an aggressive manner. Unzipping the sleeping bag, Izuku rolled onto his back and sat up, looking in the direction the voice was coming from. Oh, it's you. Izuku stared blankly at the blonde-haired boy with a lightning bolt in his hair. Harsh dude, the boy said, pretending to sound offended and speaking in a sarcastic tone. He sat on his haunches at eye level with Izuku. Oh, I didn't mean to offend you. Izuku responded, not quite picking up on the sarcasm in his groggy state. None taken. The blonde held out his hand with a smile. I was being sarcastic, dude. Izuku looked down at the blonde's hand and shook it. Oh well, I'm Izuku Midoriya. Nice to meet you. Izuku spoke in a tired voice, but the blonde seemed to ignore it. Nice to meet you too, Midoriya. I'm Denki Kaminari. Mind if I sit next to you? Izuku tilted his head a little bit but nodded while letting go of Kaminari's hand. Awesome. The electric boy stood up and took a seat next to Izuku while he too stood up, rolling his sleeping bag into a roll and stuffed it into his school bag before sitting down. Oh right, thanks for the help at the entrance exam, you saved my hide. Kaminari smiled and held out his right hand in a thumbs up to Izuku, who shook his head. Oh, it was nothing. I just saved a guy in need like a hero should. A small light formed in Izuku's eyes and his passion for heroism shone through. The two boys went on to talk with each other awkwardly for the next half an hour, during which the class began to fill up with their classmate, with an invisible girl entering first and the brunette Izuku had saved from the zero-pointer entering last. Upon seeing Izuku, the girl made her way towards him. She had never gotten the chance to thank him for saving her after the entrance exam came to a close during all the confusion. Well, that and Izuku had abruptly said goodbye before walking off to get an autograph from Recovery Girl. Hello. The girl arrived at Izuku's desk and began to talk, but got cut off by the voice of Aizawa. This isn't the place to make friends. The whole class, which had been rowdy until just a second ago, went quiet, and everyone except for Izuku looked to the entrance of the classroom in confusion. Where did that voice come from? The brunette was the first to ask, while Izuku simply just pointed at the floor by the door. This is the hero course, so I expect you all to be responsible and take your seats. Shortly after Aizawa's words reached the class, every student who wasn't already seated scurried to their seats, while Aizawa, who was in a bigger version of the sleeping bag Izuku had used earlier, unzipped it and stood up, coming into view of the entire class. It took you 7 seconds to settle down after I reprimanded you. Time is precious and irreplaceable. Misusing it like this is unacceptable. Some of the students of Class 1 audibly gulped while Izuku just sat with his head resting on his palm. I am Shota Aizawa, and I will be your homeroom teacher for your time in Class 1A. You may call me Sensei Aizawa. His introduction brought some confusion among most of the students. Is he even a hero? A pink girl asked not so discreetly. I think so, Kaminari replied while looking back and forth in between Izuku and Aizawa, whose actions made them resemble each other. Meanwhile, Izuku was getting ready to fanboy out about Aizawa, but before he could speak, Aizawa reached into his sleeping bag and pulled out a pile of blue, red, and white uniforms and placed it on the podium in the front of the class. Put these on and go out to the training field. The class was dumbfounded, including Izuku, who had been told by Aizawa that he would be treated like a regular UA student. Thank you all for sticking around, and I hope that you enjoyed. Before you leave, we would just like to let you know that We the Celestials has many other channels for your entertainment and viewing purposes. All the information you'll need is right below here in the description, so feel free to check out all the other incredible projects our team creates. Secondly, on behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details will be in the description below. That's all for today's video, so goodbye and have a divine day.